Today, I'm going to talk about how and why I got back into writing, but first you need to know why I stopped. Hi, my name's Shawler. I am an artist and a writer, and I write the Môrdreigiau Chronicles, a free series over on Substack at projectstarfish.substack.com, and it is all about a young Regency woman who has to stop the world from ecological collapse by collecting Arthurian artifacts. And there are sea dragons. So in the question and answer session that I did in the previous video, I will link to that somewhere, I talked about how I changed my publishing game from traditional publishing to self-publishing on Substack. But what I didn't share was that I actually stopped writing for about 15 years. I first introduced myself as an artist and a writer, and that is still true. You can see this painting here and that painting there, and I have one over on the wall. I have a work in progress. I realized as I switched from writing to art journaling and then painting was that I needed to be creative. Part of who I am is to be a creative being. And so I didn't abandon my creativity when I stopped writing, which was due to burnout and the need to reinvent myself for a third time after my second contract finished with the New York publishing house that I was with. I just got really tired of not being who I am. I don't think I actually realized this at the time exactly, but reflecting back, I wasn't Shawler. I was writing under a pseudonym. I was looking at writing under another pseudonym. Should the new genre of fiction that I wanted to write sell? But what I wanted to write wasn't selling. I didn't fit any particular niche that was popular at the time, so I just gave it away. I'm like, nope, I've done it, I've published, I've achieved my goal, the end. Do not need to write anymore. So I went and painted, and you can see the paintings here that I've been working on. I do abstracts, I do portraits, I do pencil, watercolor, pastel, any particular supply you can name I can do, except oils, because oils are messy and stinky and require specialized cleanup. For 15 years, I was happy to just, collage, paint, sketch, draw. It fed my creative spirit and all was good. And in fact, if I don't paint or draw or sketch, I get to be a bit gnarly and not so easy to live with. So my path back to writing came with some writing prompts that were just suggested just for fun in a community that I belong to called The Lighthouse. I'll link to that below. It is a contemplative community of women who are mostly in the United States, but we're all over here and there. And it was just a suggestion to just play with writing. And I'm like, A, I hate writing prompts, but B, I'm like, play and writing. Can I actually do that? Can I come back to it? So I thought, well, it's an hour of my day, or 45 minutes really, of my day. I'll give it a go. And the writing started to flow. The other part was, by this point, I had wanted to buy a set of journaling supplies from Notebook Therapy. They had just come out with their Hinoki line, which is a traveler's notebook style book. And it came with like stickers and papers and washi tape and PET tape, and it was just delicious. But it wasn't cheap, and I was like, okay, how can I justify this expense? What if this journal was the journal of a fictional character? And that's where the first story started. Now, I've just come back from South Korea, which was an amazing experience. I went on a K-drama tour on a bus with other people who were also big K-drama fans, and we just had so much fun. And K-drama, I've said in a recent article on Substack, was one of the things that brought me back to writing. And it's true, because my first thought was to do a Joseon era historical diary. So she would be someone dropped into the Joseon era, probably meeting a prince, because, the old romance bug was still kicking pretty hard. I thought this would be great, except my knowledge of Joseon Korea is pretty much K-drama. And I'm pretty sure they take liberties with what actually happened. And there are some great Korean and Korean American authors out there who are writing in this period. I'm like, I don't speak the language. I don't know the history. if I do this now in this way, how am I being authentic? Am I actually, appropriating this culture just for my own particular enjoyment and pleasure? And if it was just for me, perhaps I would have done it and like called it fan fiction in some sense. But it still rankled so much that I set down that idea. So now I have to confess, K-dramas are still influencing my work. I love to drop in some of the tropes into the writing, and I do it in such a way that if you're a K-drama fan, you know what just happened. And if you're not, a romantic moment just happened and all is good. Right, so I had abandoned this idea of, the red sleeve version of a diary. And so I wondered, who could this fictional character be? And I looked back at some of the stuff that I had written before that I had been writing, so, do the 3 chapters in a synopsis to see if someone's willing to bite on a particular story. And I had, several of these that had like died or that I hadn't even sent out because I realized it didn't have any legs. And there was like just one story, one memory involving a sea dragon. And I'm like, sea dragon. And then I remembered the character who met the sea dragon, and I'm like, oh, she would be really interesting. What if? And this manuscript was like an alternate history. It involved some bit of magic, airships, like steampunky airships. And I kind of had a hint that the character that was part of the central character of that story was not going to be the central character of this new story, this diary, although a ship's log did intrigue. I'm dropping little hints about book 4 now. But if I can't set it in South Korea because I don't know enough about the culture, the language, the history, where can I set it? And I'm like, Wales. My grandmother is from Wales. My great-grandparents are from Wales. Actually, I'm considered Great British. I have Scottish, Irish, English, and Welsh ancestry. So it felt like something that I knew, and I loved the Arthurian tales. So I have a setting. I have sea dragons. And I thought, because this journal that I was going to buy is actually a modern journal, it's not going to be like authentic-y, oldie book. I thought, well, let's make it magical. Well, sea dragon, so got to be magical. So I could use all the modern supplies. And I'm like, well, what if she had to hide her diary entries? And a little bit of brainstorming later, and we come up with Ida Theopendia, and this is her diary. I have it right here. And I would fill it with entries, and this book would be just for me. I was just writing for fun, for play, remember? And so I came up with a plot and started writing it and was sharing it with some friends in the Lighthouse community and in a small group that I'm in. And one of them, who lives in Germany, said, well, I want to read this. How can I read this if it's here and you're not going to be sending this to me? And I'm like, fair. So I discovered Substack, and I'd almost finished writing A Grail for Ida Theatre by that point. So I had to learn how to serialize something already written, because I knew I couldn't just post chapters as a chunk, because if I was to get other readers besides my friend in Germany, then I would need to like hook them in some way. And so that's how A Grail for Ida Theatre, the tale of a young woman in 1814 West Wales, has a vision of ecological collapse for the planet and knows that she has to somehow stop it with the help of sea dragons. And I'm not going to spoil anything with this story as to how that happens, but she goes to seek the Grail as the key part to bringing restoration back to the planet. And I made it free to read on my Substack because, again, this is all about play for me. I have no need to make money from it. Like, if you need to make money from your writing, great, go for it. I just wanted just a little corner of the internet where I could share these stories and have fun writing and sharing them, making little book trailers for them. Actually, let's roll the book trailer. That would be fun to do right here. We're thrilled to find this trunk in our attic. My journal is gone. Burned. When I read that first line, I knew I had to read the rest. And when I had, I knew I had to share it with all of you too. And I'm so excited to share with you the story that I found within it. It is 1814. History will say the Napoleonic Wars are drawing to a close. But in reality, a new history is just beginning. Miss Idathea Pendeer is content to live on the isolated western Welsh coast until a wounded man washes up on her beach. In tending him, she has a vision of the future. The world's ecology has completely collapsed. The ocean has died, including all life within it, and life on land is fading quickly. The sea dragons, the burnout, a magical race almost forgotten by humans, have gone extinct. Humanity's demise is close behind. Idathea is catapulted into taking up her mother's quest to find the Grail, last loaned to Arthur Pendragon by the burnout. Her cause is much larger. She is the longed-for prophet that will help prevent the world's collapse. The wounded man, Llŷr, is Môrdreigiau, a sea dragon, and becomes her guide through burnout society and her partner in preventing her vision from coming true. But Idathea is not the only one seeking the Grail. Like Idathea, Jasper Tregallis is part burnout. He is considered inferior by his family because of his human mother. His family want the Grail for themselves. Jasper has been searching for it to finally gain his family's approval. Can Idathea trust him despite his vocal support for her cause? Will she succeed in finding the Grail? And can she change the future? Yeah, I'm a little dramatic. So that is how book one came about. It was through a bunch of journaling supplies that I couldn't afford and ended up only buying one thing of that. And then also K-dramas is the place I turned to first for a story idea. And then going back and looking at my own work and then just pulling it out of the air. It was actually kind of pretty magical how it all came about. And I can't go into any more specifics than that, I don't think. Let me have a look at my notes. Hang on. I don't have anything. So how book one came together was I went back to my roots as a romance writer. There was a process where you do a storyboard and like this bump, 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 and then like a turning point, bump, 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 turning point, bump, 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 turning point. So I did that. I color-coded the post-its so that there was like external plot, then the story with male lead number 1, Llŷr, and male lead number 2, Jasper, and to make sure that that was balanced, that it wasn't all Jasper and it wasn't all Llŷr. And that's something I keep in mind throughout writing this series, as there are 2 male leads. And as of book 3, oh no, I can't tell you. Book 3 is not out yet. So I plotted that out. And I got to a certain point where like, right, I can start writing this and then we'll see what happens when we get to the point that I'd written up to. It turned out not to be novel-sized, tended to be more of a long novella, short novel. Like it's not even 50,000 words, if I remember correctly. It moves. It has good pacing. And I felt really good about finishing it and then getting it out to the world. How the story comes to me is like a mix of like I just visualize it. Like I might daydream about it and then have a dream about a particular scene, and then I'll try and capture that. And like, well, okay, the climax of book 1 how do they get there? Why would this person do that particular thing to this other person? I'm trying not to spoil it because I know many of you probably haven't read A Grail for Idethea, and I don't want to wreck the ending for you. So I'm trying not to spoil anything in book 1. But when I talk about book 2 next week, or the week after next, depending on when I get around to releasing this, I'm going to be talking about how book 2 changed my writing process from the very orderly plot, rising arc, falling, climax, the traditional way of writing story, to what it is now. And it was quite the struggle. And I'm going to attempt to perhaps replay that struggle for you if I can. I'm going to try and keep it to a minimum, but it may not work out. Sorry, not sorry. But I want to bring you up to speed for book 3, and then we can talk about book 4. So that is how I fell out of writing and came back to writing and wrote book 1. I hope you have enjoyed this particular episode of me just rambling on here about writing. Next time, I'm talking about how I wrote book 2 and how my writing process changed. I will try and keep the spoilers to a minimum, but hey, if you head over to Project Starfish, I have everything indexed, so it's quite easy for you to find it. You can go to projectstarfish.substack.com and just click on the Start Here, the Môrdreigiau Chronicles, or Start Here, A Grail for Idethea. Book 2 is called A River Trembles. It's also pinned to my homepage, so you should be able to find that pretty easily. And then I have linked the next chapter, so once you finish reading a chapter, just hit next chapter, you're on to the next chapter, and you're good to go. And I have checked the links so far, and I'm pretty sure they all work. So again, please subscribe over there on Substack if you're interested in reading a fantasy romance about sea dragons and a young woman trying to find her way in the world and to save it. Otherwise, you're welcome to like this video, subscribe, etc. And I will see you next time here on the little YouTube channel that I have. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!